NNPC says it is still waiting for official order to take over entire operatorship of OML2, from which Shell Oil's license was revoked. Lagos State Building Control Agency begins demolition of unsafe and unfit buildings on Lagos Island. In international news, tragedy in New Zealand as nearly 50 persons killed in mass shootings at Christchurch Mosque. In the sport, FIFA Council meeting begins today in Miami.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Days after the presidency revoked Shell Petroleum Development Corporation's operating license and ordered the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to take over the operatorship of the entire OML11, NNPC says it is yet to receive the order. NNPC told some journalists on Thursday it was still waiting for a letter or memo to that effect. NNPC spokesperson Undu Ugamadu is quoted as saying the corporation knows nothing about the notice, which had already been made public. The federal government's action on Thursday to revoke Shell's operating license was said to have been taken out of respect for inhabitants of Ogoni land, where OML11 is located. That is also where there had been a series of Shell oil spills that have polluted the area and exposed residents to a series of dangers. For years, the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, MOSOP, has been fighting against the environmental degradation caused by Shell's operation. MOSOP last month had characterized Shell's operation in the area as a national shame and accused the oil company of crimes against humanity. Many have asked about the legality of the revocation, and legal experts have said it is in line with the joint operating agreement which is signed by the joint venture partners. Those partners are NNPC, which owns 55% of the shares in the OML11, Shell has 30%, Total 15%, and Ajib 5%. The conflict in this joint venture dates back to 1993. Shell Petroleum Development Company is said to have abandoned activities in the Ogoni section of the lease for about 26 years. That was since crisis erupted when prominent Ogoni leaders, including Ken Saro-Wiwa, were killed. In 2015, Shell agreed to pay a $15.5 million settlement to resolve the case. OML11 lies in the southeastern Niger Delta and contains 33 oil and gas fields, of which 8 are producing as of 2017. OML11 is one of the most important blocks in Nigeria in terms of production. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says is shocked and saddened over the collapse of a 3-story building in Lagos, in which many people died on Wednesday. At least 50 children were rescued by Emergency and Security Service Agency. Spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Stephen Dujarric, said on Thursday the Secretary General will send a condolence letter to the Nigerian government. Lagos State Governor Kilmi Ambode has said a thorough investigation will be launched into the investigation. Meanwhile, National President of Building Collapse Prevention Guild, Kunle Awobodo, says there are more than 1,000 Lagos Island buildings that are unfit for human habitation. Awobodo made the comment in an interview with the News Agency of Nigeria in Lagos on Thursday. He said his guild has informed the Lagos State Building Control Agency about these buildings and has recommended they be demolished. He specifically spoke about the collapsed building in which many people died as one of the many unfit buildings for human habitation on the island. He warns of more calamities to come if the more than 1,000 other unfit buildings are not demolished. He said they will still collapse. Awobodo said the Building Control Agency must take the bull by the horn and ensure that all distressed buildings in the state are identified and demolished. As if it was listening to the call, the Lagos State Building Control Agency has begun demolition of defective buildings on the Lagos Island on Friday morning, as they pulled down a building on Freeman Street in the Ekpetedo area, close to where the 3-story building collapsed earlier in the week. The agency said the demolition exercise was unconnected to the collapsed building earlier this week. In Imo State, Governor Rochester Okorocha was not issued a certificate of return yesterday by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, after he was adjudged to have forced the returning officer for Imo West Senatorial District to declare him winner of the senatorial election last week. His son-in-law, Uche Nwosu, also lost his governorship bid to the People's Democratic Party candidate, Emeka Ihedioha. In his reaction, Governor Okorocha said it is unclear to him how he could coerce INEC commissioner to declare him winner in an election he won. He said the state resident electoral commissioner was acting a script. Okorocha said it is not true that he forced INEC's official to declare him winner. He said this is a game that is being played. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has met with former President Olusegun Obasanjo in Abeokuta, Ogun State on Thursday. Atiku Abubakar was former President Obasanjo's vice president, but he had fallen out shortly before they left power in 2007. They reconciled 3 months to the recent general elections, and this was the first time they have met since Atiku lost to President Muhammadu Buhari nearly a month ago. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, says the federal government will soon begin reconstruction of grazing reserves across the country. He said this while receiving participants in the Executive Intelligence Management Course 12 in Abuja earlier today. Director of Information at the ministry, Makoji Mohammed, quoted the minister as saying the reconstruction of the grazing reserves had become necessary because of conflicts between farmers and herders. The minister also said the reconstruction was crucial for the federal government to reduce high unemployment rates in the country. Wife of the president, Aisha Buhari, has been appointed as the special ambassador for the United Nations program on HIV and AIDS for the elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. The appointment came as a result of the expiration of the initial appointment last year. In accepting the appointment, Mrs. Buhari urged women in Nigeria to conduct regular HIV and AIDS tests to guard against mother-to-child transmission of the disease. A delegation of the Joint United Nations program on HIV and AIDS, led by its executive director, Michelle Sidibe, has met with Mrs. Buhari in Abuja on Thursday. Coming up, African stories. African leaders call for more efforts to create jobs for young people. And later, international news. At least 50 killed in New Zealand mass shooting. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. African business and political leaders have called on governments to intensify efforts to create more jobs for young people on the continent. Delegates to a think tank summit in Kampala say the wealth of Africa must be harnessed for the benefit of the young. Reporter Isabel Nakuria was there.
It's a meeting of the experienced, but they are gathering to help the young. And at their summit in Kampala, these business and political leaders said governments must turn to processing industries to create jobs.
Stopping the export of raw materials, where we get only 10% of the value of the product and lose jobs. That one I've talked about very many times. This shirt I'm putting on is Ugandan, from cotton to wear. That's why I'm putting it on.
About 32 million young people are unemployed in Africa, according to the think tank, the Society of African Nations. Delegates at this meeting say African leaders need to create better environments to empower young people to succeed.
If the prosperity we have is just for a few of our family and self, it will not help us to create the kind of African society that we need. Some of us have embarked on some of the projects that we embarked on, not necessarily because we have a lot of money, but because we realize that really how much do you need, and isn't it better if this wealth is applied in a manner that creates other prosperity.
Speakers at this meeting believe that African countries can do more to speed up their development. Delegates here say the solution for African governments is to discover new investment opportunities, but emphasize that young people need to be included in policies from the beginning. Only then will Africa's children have a brighter future.
U.S. Assistant Secretary for African Affairs Thibault Nage has called on Cameroon authorities to release immediately the leader of opposition party movement for the Renaissance of Cameroon, Maurice Kamto, and his supporters. Kamto, who is challenging the results of last November's presidential election, was arrested during a rally in the country's economic capital, Douala, and jailed with his supporters in the capital. Charges against them included hostility to the state, destruction of state property, and rebellion. They are being tried by a military tribunal, and if found guilty, they could face the death penalty. Nage said Kamto's arrest was politically motivated. He also said the government is not giving the political crisis in the northwest and southwest the serious attention it deserves. Ghanaian currency has depreciated by 11% against the dollar over the last 1 year, witnessing its worst performance in November. Businesses in the country are feeling the impact, and nearly $700 million has been pumped in as support to stabilize the currency. And with that help, reporter Nabia Ahmed Rufai tells us more.
Owusu Efrie sells car parts at this retail hub in Accra. He relies on imports from Europe and China, but Owusu says a percentage plunge in the value of Ghana's cedi against the US dollar in 2018 means the goods he buys are now much more expensive.
The dollar is used to calculate taxes on our imports. So when the cedi depreciates against the dollar, it increases our cost of doing business.
Owusu and other dealers say they are forced to pass those higher costs on to customers.
Car parts dealers have been charging higher prices since January, but they say business has been slow as a result, with many consumers no longer able to afford their products.
The value of the cedi against the dollar hits all-time low this month. It comes despite government efforts in recent years to stem the decline by imposing foreign exchange restrictions and making it easier for companies to repatriate their export proceeds. The Bank of Ghana is plowing $800 million into stabilizing the country's currency, but some economists say the government needs to focus on long-term changes instead, such as reining in public spending, boosting productivity, and addressing Ghana's trade and budget deficits.
If we don't fix the economy in terms of our long-term, policies to tackle the fundamentals of the economy, pumping $800 million will still get us back to, depreciation of the cedi. What we have to do is let's get our economy to be export-driven and not import-driven.
Owusu agrees. He, like many others affected by the weak cedi, says his business will continue to suffer unless steps are taken to bolster the country's overall economic fortunes.
The house of first Mozambican President Samora Machel is in a bad state of repair despite its legacy of liberation struggle for southern African countries. British colonialists had established a house for growing groundnut in a field Tanganyika ground, not scheme in the late 1940s. The house was later used as a camp by Frelimo during Mozambique's national liberation struggle and later as a training base for freedom fighters from Zimbabwe, Angola and South Africa. A Tanzanian newspaper crew that visited the house found it in a bad state despite its history of independence struggle in southern Africa and a potential tourist attraction. Samora Machel was the first president of Mozambique from the country's independence in 1975. He was killed when his presidential aircraft crashed near the Mozambique-South Africa border in 1986. When we return, international news. New Zealand terrorized by mass shootings, nearly 50 killed. And later sport. FIFA Council meeting begins today in Miami.
You are watching ANN.
Looking for some Disney magic but don't know where to find it? We've got a magical solution just for you. Simply go to disneynigeria.mobi and get an exciting selection of games, short videos, wallpapers, shareables, and more. Explore a whole new world of Disney on your mobile, tablet, or PC. For just 200 Naira monthly, you get to enjoy the fun to infinity and beyond. SMS Disney to 11006 to begin. Terms and conditions apply. This service is only available to MTN customers.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to global events. 49 persons have been killed and 20 seriously injured in two mass shootings at mosque in the New Zealand city of Christchurch. 41 were killed at the Al Noor Mosque. 7 died at the Linwood Mosque and 1 person died at the hospital. Police say 4 persons, including 3 men and 1 woman, have been taken into custody. They do not believe there are any other suspects, but said it was still an open investigation. Police said a male in his late 20s has been charged with murder and will appear at the Christchurch court Saturday morning local time. In a social media post just before the attack, an account that is believed to belong to one of the attackers posted a link to an 87-page manifesto that was filled with anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim ideas and explanations for an attack. The manifesto was not signed. Britain's parliament has voted in favor of delaying by 3 months UK's departure from the European Union, pending approval of Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal within a week. MPs in the House of Commons voted 412 to 202 on Thursday, in favor of a government's motion proposing pushing the UK's exit from the bloc beyond the scheduled March the 29th date. The motion said the government would seek a one-off extension until June the 30th for the purpose of passing the necessary EU exit legislation, provided May's widely maligned deals wins Parliament approval by Wednesday next week. If May fails to win parliamentary approval for her deal by March 20, the Brexit delay could be extended beyond 3 months. Twice now, British legislators have overwhelmingly rejected her EU divorce deal. Israel's launch air attack on Gaza hours after rockets were fired aimed at Tel Aviv. This has raised fears of a major escalation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Explosions were heard in the Gaza Strip early on Friday, and Palestinian witnesses said Israeli planes bombed Hamas security position. A Gaza Palestinian security source told AFP news agency about 30 raids targeted positions held by the military wing of Hamas and its ally Islamic Jihad, causing significant damage. Local Palestinian agencies reported a woman and her husband were both injured in the southern city of Rafah, but did not provide further details. Israeli military said it was attacking terror sites in Gaza hours after it said 2 rockets were launched from the enclave in the Tel Aviv area. Death toll in Syria's northwestern Idlib province has risen to 15 following Syrian government forces airstrikes in the rebel-held area. Along with artillery barrages, Russian warplanes attacked central Idlib and its rural outskirts with 4 air raids on Wednesday, resulting in casualties that included 8 children. The attacks, in which 49 civilians were wounded, targeted the Al-Kashi neighborhood, damaging residential buildings. North Korea is considering suspension of denuclearization talks with the United States. And North Korea Deputy Foreign Minister Chu Sung-ho told reporters North Korea has no intention to yield to U.S. demands in any form, nor is it willing to engage in negotiations of any kind. Cho said the North was deeply disappointed by the failure of the two sides to reach any agreement at last month's summit between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump in the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi. She blamed the breakdown of talks on the U.S. side, saying the American delegation was being too demanding and inflexible. The United States has not yet responded to Cho's comment. Still ahead, sport. FIFA Council meeting begins today in Miami. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left. Yes, you're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Whether in your house, at your office or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. Confederation of African Football President Ahmad Ahmad has received his visa to enter the United States for this week's FIFA Council meetings after visa delays caused him to miss the opening session of the two-day meeting. Ahmad says Africa will definitely support expanding to 48 teams the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The possible expansion discussions were on FIFA Council's agenda for its two-day meeting that ends today in Miami. Football governing body FIFA has banned Guatemalan Football Association former president Rafael Salguero from all football-related activities for 7 years for bribery. Salguero, a former member of the FIFA and the Executive Committee of the Confederation of North, Central American and Caribbean Association Football, has been found guilty of bribery in violation of FIFA Code of Ethics. He was investigated for various bribery schemes during the 2006 to 2014 period related to CONCACAF and FIFA competitions, as well as illegal reselling of tickets for the FIFA World Cup. Salguero is one of 16 high-ranking officials who has been indicted in the U.S. in connection with FIFA corruption scandals. And that is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit the website annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Enjoy your weekend.